In yet another turning of the free-to-play cycle, Mecha Break has lost almost 75% of its players in just 2 weeks. It probably still has legs, but the massive wave of initial enthusiasm has broken due to some of the game's technical issues and monetization setup. Mecha Break is just a second game from publisher-developer Amazing Season Games. And no matter how you slice it, that's incredibly awesome. The game has flaws, but its sense of visual style isn't one of them. Mecha Break looks incredible, and just viewing its array of giant guns, winged ships, and extravagant mech suits is bound to get you excited to play. And gamers responded. Mecha Break peaked at over 130,000 players on Steam on its release day. For a moment, it was the most exciting mech gaming since Armored Core 6 blew everyone away in 2023. The graphics and the gameplay aren't the things holding Mecha Break back. Instead, the game is fighting against some vocally upset players, and worse than that, a mixed review average on Steam. The mixed label won't bring in many new players on PC, so Amazing Season Games has some challenges ahead. One of the biggest issues currently facing Mecha Break is the game's performance on PC. A quick scroll through some of the negative reviews pouring in on Steam reveals that many players are having issues running the game. There are the usual problems like stuttering visuals and unmanageably high ping during online games, but Mecha Break has a unique issue. The game won't run on Linux. Mecha Break is set up to run on Linux-based Steam decks, but the game's anti-cheat software prevents it from being run in desktop mode or on standard Linux machines. The devs have actually responded to negative reviews centered on the Linux problem, but for now, Amazing Season Games hasn't announced any plans to bring Mecha Break to other operating systems. Negative reviews of Mecha Break frequently point to the game's pricey cosmetics. Several reviews on Steam call out $50 character skins and urge other players not to give Amazing Season Games a dime. It's true that Mecha Break has the typical cosmetic and battle pass systems that gamers have come to expect, though some of the prices are simply higher than players can stomach. On the bright side, all the monetization in Mecha Break is tied to cosmetics, and most of what you can purchase with real money can be earned with in-game currency. Unfortunately, the problem isn't just that high prices are pushing some Windows shoppers to leave negative reviews. Fans of the game have done deep dives into the monetization flaws in Mecha Break and have laid out their major complaints online. Most of the complaints boil down to the game having a wildly unintuitive UI that makes engaging with any of the monetized systems a cumbersome chore. Amazing Season Games might not be able to drop its prices, but it should be able to come up with smoother systems for letting players spend money. On July 9th, IGN reviewed Mecha Break and gave it 8 out of 10 stars. Then the game debuted and well over 100,000 players showed up on its first day. Since then, Mecha Break has lost almost 70% of its players on Steam. But what does that really mean for the game?
We are left with one mission: survival.
After the massive drop in active players, Mecha Break is still getting tens of thousands of gamers signing in on a daily basis. As a point of comparison, Warframe averages about 40,000 to 50,000 players a day, and that game is still considered a massive success. The numbers surrounding Mecha Break are eye-popping at first glance, but when you dig into it, the game seems like it's in a fine place. This is just the usual ebb and flow of free-to-play games. Palworld also lost 70% of its active players in 2024, and that game is doing just fine. Another aspect of this story is that the numbers we have for Mecha Break aren't entirely accurate. The game debuted on Windows and Xbox systems, but the player count data comes directly from Steam. We don't have the data for Xbox gamers, so Mecha Break could have a secret army of players that no one knows about. Even assuming the Xbox numbers are following a similar trajectory as the Steam data, that means Mecha Break has twice the players people think it does. Losing 75% of its players in 2 weeks doesn't mean that Mecha Break is in danger of disappearing anytime soon. Helldivers 2 lost a full 90% of its active players, and that game is still chugging along happily. The future for Mecha Break is actually looking fairly bright. The first major update is on the way, and fans are already getting hyped about it and pitching their wish list for future features. Mecha Break doesn't need a ridiculously massive player base to stay alive. Some of the initial negative reviews called out bots in matchmaking games, but Mecha Break fans are already making their peace with the bots filling out some of the team rosters. That's especially good because bots can keep the game feeling active for years even with a small player base, which is something that amazing seasoned games should be good at managing. The developer's first release, Snowbreak Containment Zone, doesn't have the same competitive matchmaking approach as Mecha Break, but it is a free-to-play game that's managed to sustain itself for years. Snowbreak never reached the heights of Mecha Break, and it averages fewer than 2,000 players a day. Despite that, Amazing Season Games still supports Snowbreak with regular updates, and does its best to keep that small group of fans happy. If the devs keep supporting a game as small as Snowbreak, then gamers can probably rest assured that Mecha Break will stick around for a long time.